everyone, and welcome back. I am pleased to introduce our first panel discussion of the conference and with my esteemed colleagues from Western Canada. So, Kim Klein, the president of the Bioscience Association of Manitoba, or affectionately referred to as BAM, and Rob Stoddard, who is the president and CEO of Alberta. So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to start by just taking a couple of minutes to talk about our organizations. We work very collaboratively together as provincial leaders of our life sciences organizations, but there are a little bit of unique differences, and we thought that might be interesting for people to hear. So Kim, I'm going to let you kick us off and tell us a little bit about BAM.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Wendy, for having me here. Tell you a little bit about Bioscience Association Manitoba. We are a not-for-profit industry association. We are actually funded by the provincial government and the federal government on basis of projects. We are the connector, the advocator. We actually support our member companies, which we have approximately about 110 member companies right now. They are everything from SMEs to full-blown pharmaceutical companies to post-secondary institutions to various stakeholders, research groups, etc. We are a small staff. We're small but mighty, as I always tell everyone. And of course, our main goal always is to support the economic growth of the industry within the province. We're a little bit different because we actually have a very, very diverse group and eclectic group. We have everything from health biotech to agricultural biotech to clean biotech companies. And so it allows us to have our fingers in all those different pies, anything that has to do with life sciences or biosciences.
That's great, Kim. Thank you. Rob, over to you, Alberta.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks everybody for joining. So Alberta was formed in 1998 as a not-for-profit industry association, and really what started it was 40 biotech founders in the Edmonton area coming together and saying we need to put some collective resources into building and growing a network that we can rely on and find each other in. So that was the genesis of Alberta, and to this day, 23, 24 years later, it's actually the kind of the essence of our mission is being able to connect connect companies, founders with support, with parts of supply chain, and even help them start to grow some of their business pieces. We started off government funded. We eliminated government funding from an operational standpoint about 3 years ago, and what that allowed us to do is we've become more of an industry association and an advocate, because it's allowed us to develop some ideas and really provide recommendations to government publicly that sometimes you can't do when your funding is tied to your operations. We do work on strategic projects with government though, and we'll take contract funding to deliver on those projects and those initiatives. One of the things that makes us, I think, slightly different than the other two associations is I think we probably have the widest portfolio when it comes to our definition of life sciences. Our traditional core is biotech, health tech, medical devices, but we also cover bioindustrial components such as biogas. We don't do clean tech, but we do look at biomass utilization, and then we've moved into the value-added processing piece sector when it comes to natural health products, which is a growing project sector in Alberta, and more recently into areas such as psychedelics and plant proteins and functional ingredients. And really what we look for when we represent an industry is where is that convergence around science and technology as the foundation for their group. So it's as you'll hear from all three of us, we're very lean organizations. We have highly talented and highly motivated people working with us, and it is for that core mission of getting companies to grow from emerging out of the research facility and onto their way for global markets.
That's great, Rob. Thanks. So I think probably a lot of the audience knows about LSPC, given that we're hosting this. But carrying with the theme of what Kim and Rob talked about, so Life Sciences BC is actually a 30-year-old organization. We turned 30 this year. We are a not-for-profit, non-governmental funded, so entirely member funded and sponsor funded. So we work on behalf of our broad and diverse group of stakeholders. We're all very similar, probably 80% similar, and then there's some nuances that make us a little bit unique. So our members consist of academic institutions, research institutions, CROs, industry being very small, even some of them still little SMEs that still have a foot in the door in academic and research institutions, and then those SMEs that are scaling out or transitioning out of those institutions. Digital health, virtual health, medtech, medical devices, bioinformatics, local biotech, global. And in addition to, I think similar to both BAM and Bio Alberta, we also have a number of companies that provide specialized services to this particular sector, whether they be lawyers, bioinformatics people, accountants, regulatory consultants, etc. So like each of the other organizations, we really are where the sector comes together. And that is a big part of what we all are mandated to do, is to provide those connections, the networking, open up doors for our member companies, and raise the profile of the sector. And with that, Kim, maybe I can keep going in this order, and you can talk a little bit about the ecosystem in Manitoba and what defines it.
So I'm really proud Manitoban, obviously, and one of the things I like to tell people all the time is that I think Manitoba is a very well kept secret as far as some of the resources, the ecosystem that are here, and the stakeholders that are here in Manitoba. We actually have a very robust research community. We also have the only level 4 containment lab in the country. We have a number of institutions, 9 research institutions that we deal with and work with very, very closely. One of the things I love to brag about is that medicaments, which is pharmaceutical medicines, therapeutics, and vaccines, is the #1 export out of Manitoba. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people think it's something to do with wheat or pork, but actually in the last 7 years, medicaments has been the #1 at $2.1 billion. What that does is that actually makes Manitoba the 2nd largest province in Canada for pharmaceutical manufacturing, and nobody knows that. I like to say that it's really nice because we have a real great presence in Western Canada for pharmaceutical manufacturing. It's such a huge ecosystem. We actually also here in Manitoba have the largest cache of historical data in all of Canada. And not very many people know that as well. So it's a really great place for companies to come do clinical trials, any kind of clinical research. And because we have the largest amount of historical data, it is everything from healthcare to families to mostly healthcare data. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Does that tell you a little bit more?
No,
Roquette is the largest pea processing plant in all of Canada, and it is actually just outside of Winnipeg. We've got a lot of the value-added plant-based companies that are here as well, which again contributes to our life sciences ecosystem.
That's great. Thanks, Kim. Rob, a little bit about the Alberta life sciences ecosystem.
Sure. So we just completed every second year we do a state of the industry report with Deloitte, and we're able to look at the numbers as I said, every second year on the growth and the trends within our companies and the ecosystem as a whole. So we've seen a significant growth across Alberta in the last in the last 3 to 5 years. We've been able to say traditionally our companies have been 60-40 Edmonton versus Calgary, and 60-40 biotech, or 60-35 biotech, med device, and then others. And the time between 2017 and 2021 has been a really tipping point, where we look at our companies now. There's we had 340 companies respond to our survey for the report of 650 identified. And what we see now, and driven by health tech and digital, is Calgary has 50% of the companies in the province, 40 in Edmonton, 10% in other major centers like Lethbridge, Red Deer, especially. What's interesting is if you look at when companies were established, 60% of the companies have been established since 2015, and 26% of those have been established since 2019. So there's been two things driving that. As I said, one is medtech and digital. The other is cannabis. We rode the cannabis wave quite aggressively between 2017 and 2019. 2019, it took over our report. 2021, going into it, we started to joke that the industry report would be named "What Happened to Cannabis," just because of the consolidations. The money is still there, but the number of consolidations and mergers throughout. So we really are an emerging ecosystem from that standpoint. We've gotten a lot better at the commercialization pull out of the institutions. And I think what you see, which makes, from an Alberta standpoint, we're very tribal and very competitive within our major centers, U of A, U of C, and University of Lethbridge, plus the emerging colleges. But you're starting to see around diseases or around specialties, you're seeing collaboration and networks forming between them. So Campus Alberta Neuroscience isn't just one of the universities, it's the three collaborating together. And we're starting to see the benefits of that collaboration on a provincial level to actually see the companies grow and commercialize and actually start to move into scale up.
That's great. Thanks, Rob. A little bit about British Columbia. Similar to Rob's economic report, we completed one a couple of years ago in collaboration with the BC government. That was the first time that we actually had data to talk about the sector. It also gave us language in defining the sector, and really, we, in addition to the economic indicators, we also put in a number of our assets and stories. So it's on our website if people are interested in it. But a snapshot of that is, in British Columbia, we had 2,000 companies, of which about 1,200 of them have employees. So we look at that 800 as discoveries that have been IP, that have been created companies, and chances are they're still, whoever is leading those organizations are still somehow connected into academia and research institutions. So in other words, that's the discovery pipeline. So really, really healthy discovery pipeline. At that point, we were the third largest life sciences sector in Canada, and one of BC's fastest growing sectors. We are hoping to update the report this year because, as we've all indicated the last few years, we've seen extraordinary growth coming out of life sciences. And not only because of COVID, we all know, but sometimes the two get connected quite quickly. And so we really do believe that we're probably BC's fastest growing sector right now, or at least in the top three. So hopefully we'll have a new report to talk about that. There are approximately 20,000 people that work in the sector in British Columbia, in how our definition is of the sector. And BC has got some very significant areas of expertise. One being an antibody hub. It's quite an interesting side story that some innovation spun out of UBC, ended up going through a couple of company formations. Eventually, Amgen purchased it, and Amgen still today has a research institute in Burnaby, where when I had the opportunity to ask them, why is it still here? and they talked about the quality of the research and innovation that comes out of that center. So that is 20, 25 years old. And since then, there's been a number of employees that have made their way through the antibody world. And, as we know about cluster development, now all of a sudden we have a number of antibody companies. And I shouldn't say all of a sudden, over the years, we've now really created a very strong antibody hub. We also are very strong in cellular medicine, genome therapies, and of course our expertise in nanomedicines, particularly lipid nanoparticles that were key to the Pfizer vaccines. So, I think that's one thing that's very interesting about our provincial organizations, or I should say our ecosystems, is we have particular areas of expertise that happen in each of our provinces, but we also have this opportunity to really collaborate across Western Canada. And maybe I'll turn to Rob first this time, because Rob, our two organizations have collaborated on a number of initiatives over the last couple of years. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and what opportunities you see for collaboration moving forward.
Sure. Thanks, Wendy. I think one of the things that we've noticed, especially when you look at the supply chain, regardless of what our organizations to do, when you look at the supply chain that supports life sciences, it really is a Western Canadian supply chain. So there's a foundation for all of our companies as they establish and grow to actually collaborate and find those components they need to grow. So it's not a new concept or one we've discovered, but it's something that we all benefit from, and we spend a lot of time as our three organizations, and even with where it makes sense with Saskatchewan, to find those projects that make sense to bring everybody forward. And I talked about some of the centers of excellence and some of the collaborations even amongst provinces. The U of A, University of Alberta, is known as one of the hubs for artificial intelligence and machine learning that the entire world actually relies on and comes to Edmonton to capitalize on. Even in subsectors like psychedelics, the research collaborations that are going on between Alberta researchers at the U of A and U of C and researchers and companies emerging in British Columbia and at UBC and even in Victoria, you see those global and regional networks really working together to accelerate development, accelerate growth, and actually work together. So it's pretty natural for us to, as organizations, to not only facilitate and promote that, but it forces us to have a better understanding of the provinces around us and how we can work together.
Mm-hmm. Kim, did you want to add anything to that?
I have to agree with Rob. He covered lots there. But supply chain, of course, is one thing that's very important. I think the other thing that just to note is that with us collaborating and sharing, what we're doing is not only we're benefiting the industries within our own provinces, but we're also benefiting Western Canada. We're making us stronger as a whole, and supporting the SMEs and the researchers, the whole ecosystem. And I think that's huge, absolutely huge, especially with the sharing. One of the things that we did all together was the pitch sessions and the training. So things like that, where we are able to collaborate when we are doing training, workforce development. Again, it just strengthens absolutely every single province. And sharing of information, because that's what we are. That's us. That's Western Canada. We share that information to support each other and build each other up. That, I think, is one of the key things about collaborating like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think many of our members really look for us as the place to make connections within life sciences. And last year we had the Western program where we ran 3 3 or 4 different sessions where we brought companies from across Western Canada together to present. It had originally, come from, really Rob taking the lead and us planning to attend a MedTech conference together, which then ended up virtual, which we attended. But what came out of it was 3 education sessions where we did pitch prep training, VC 101, and something about communication and leveraging virtual conferences, which was really great information for a lot of the SMEs. But the feedback I got was the thing that people appreciated the most about it was the ability to network and meet SMEs from other, provinces. And while we, are all ready to return to in-person everything, I'm sure like me, you're getting a lot of in-person meetings. We really were able to take advantage of a virtual platform that would have been cost prohibitive for us to have probably done last year otherwise. So as we
Yeah.
look ahead, while we all want to be in person, we also still do have that opportunity of trying to keep that cohesiveness amongst our provinces and trying to continue to have people meet each other. We have a lot of innovation that we're all unique with our with some of our areas of expertise, but there's also a lot of ability for our SMEs to collaborate on various initiatives because of the pace of innovation that's happening right now.
And I
And like
think,
anything, oh, sorry.
no, please go ahead, Kim.
Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say, we unfortunately the pandemic made everybody go virtual, right? The positive that came out of that is that now we have these systems in place where we can connect way a lot easier virtually than we did prior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if we show ourselves as a region, and not to say there's not going to be competition amongst the players in that region, but we know that in order to attract different investors, the more we can work together to show our capabilities across Western Canada, the more that's going to attract new investors, just for the sake of the fact that the potential deal book is going to be thicker, and it makes it worth their time, as opposed to the traditional way of doing it, where we did things provincially and then you geared towards bio or you geared towards AdvaMed conferences. The ability to do events like this and collaborate and pull everybody in without the time loss of travel it's a significant opportunity that we need to take advantage of, and we're really excited about how the last year and a half has looked despite what we've gone through.
Yeah, and I think that's brings us back to the whole objective of today's conference. Of the Invest in the West and bringing together SMEs from across the 3 provinces this afternoon. In order to be able to provide that exposure and allow them to meet each other as well. And as you both know, and probably many in the audience know, this is a pilot. We'll see how it goes. But we are taking advantage of the virtualness of this so that people all didn't have to fly into one particular location.
Yeah, and just on this event, Wendy knows this, is that her predecessor and my predecessor were trying to do a similar type of event, and we could never execute it. And I think the fact that we do have this virtual platform, and this is the start of hopefully something that continues in some format, has really given us the opportunity to deliver. And for Alberta to have 3 companies presenting today at a Western Canada event we're quite excited about not only having those 3, but being able to see the other companies and get a sense of what those partnering opportunities are, how we stack up, and really being able to drive the partnerships that come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to turn our attention to maybe a discussion more broadly about the ecosystem. We've all talked about the strength of our academic institutions. For us, UBC, SFU, UVic, it's amazing what is coming forward. A lot of the innovation that I talked about earlier is coming right out of UBC labs. So it's a super, super exciting time. And I know I'm, not needing to convince you that it feels like we're at a tipping point, at a place. I hear this from people in our sector all the time that it hasn't been like this for 20 years. There hasn't been this much innovation, the breadth of innovation and the potential. Is that what you're hearing in your provinces? And, Rob, I'll start with you there.
Absolutely, and I think we're used to oil booms here, and the last 2 years has been a bit of a life sciences boom, and it's kind of an opportunity to say, if we can't advance life sciences now, after we've had vaccine development accelerated and commercialized and rolled out, all of the growth and research that has ended up in these. Uh, through the pandemic, I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to have this type of wave of goodwill moving forward again. So we look at how do you capitalize that. We're starting to see the partnerships of companies that are still on a discovery path or a commercialization path, even though they weren't first or even next. But it's how does that research and how does that development and discovery translate as we move forward. We're starting to see more investment by the provincial government. Alberta put 55 million into biomanufacturing last year. We don't have a strong biomanufacturing center. Gilead Alberta is here, and they're a similar success story to Wendy, to what you were discussing earlier. Is you've had a startup that grew and scaled, that was acquired and then acquired again, moved into a former Alberta Research Council facility, and that's Gilead Alberta now, making one of the active ingredients for remdesivir. So you're starting to see those pieces come together, and I think you're starting to see that investment into life sciences by government. And we're also, quite honestly, there's such a focus on tech right now that we're enjoying a bit of the spillover on that.
Kim, did you want to comment on that?
I have to agree with you. I think it does feel like it is a tipping point, especially in life sciences, biosciences. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened, and what it did, though, it created an awareness of science and innovation. And I think we need to ride that wave, because it has really impacted all of our provinces. The innovation that's happened even here in Manitoba has been exponential. I think part of it too is a lot of people were quick to pivot, quick to innovate. A lot of our really smart scientists, I'm thinking of a couple of our companies that we have here, they pivoted really quickly. The other thing that happened was, because of the urgency of trying to get certain items in within the supply chain, some of our healthcare systems were quick to open doors and realize that it didn't have to take that long to get, say, for instance, a product within the healthcare system. So there was all these things that people became very, very aware of. And that's why I think you're right, it is a tipping point. And I have to agree with Rob. We've had more investment in biomanufacturing, not only from the provincial government, but also more interest from the federal government. And I'm very excited to see where life sciences is going to go in Western Canada in the next little while.
Well, I think the federal government announced the life sciences and biomanufacturing strategy, and being a little bit protective of Western Canada right now, clearly we want to play a significant role in it, and we have an opportunity to do that with the amazing science and innovation that's happening and expertise. So the more that we work together in helping create that vision, the stronger it will certainly be. I think the other thing I wanted to just bring up, because as I think about how we've collaborated, one of the things that really happened was when COVID happened, the three of us and our provincial counterparts across the country started to meet every other week to talk about how we could collaborate in trying to address some of the needs that were happening within our provinces for COVID, whether it be sourcing supplies or providing support If you think back to those days, everyone was getting emails from people saying they had ventilators for sale, and trying to support our governments in working through those types of supply chains. And we've been able to, I think, really come together and have a voice that is more consistent for our sector to benefit the sector generically. And I think that's been really important as we look to, really supporting what the federal government is going to do, supporting what our the potential that our sector has to both drive the economic recovery and development and competitiveness of our respective provinces and countries, but also address some of the very complex issues that we have within our healthcare system moving forward. And every one of our innovators, the end point is the healthcare system. So, we have a huge opportunity. We also, I think, as we look to outside our borders, are much stronger when we're together. So look forward to further collaboration. It's been really, really fun to do this with you as our pilot and to have this opportunity to shed a bit of light for people on the Western Canadian life sciences sector, the similarities, the strengths, the enthusiasm that you both have for the sector. And so I'm looking forward to this afternoon for our first ever Western Canadian SME pitching. And it's going to be really fun to watch that. So thank you both. Any final words, Kim or Rob?
No, I just thank you so much again for having me here. And I'm looking forward to seeing the two Manitoba companies pitch.
Great.
Yeah.
Rob?
No, Wendy, thanks to LSBC for pulling this forward. And it's just such a great opportunity to show how we work together and continue driving that collaboration. So thanks for this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you both. I am now going to introduce Yarko from Aon, who is the technology sponsor of this event, to say a few words. Yarko?
Hi, Wendy. Thanks for the introduction. It's hilarious that we're the technology sponsor, and I spent the last 27 minutes with Claire trying to get into the call.
It happens to the best of us.
It does. So thanks, and thanks for giving us a couple minutes to speak here. So I'm going to share my screen because I prepared some slides, and I'm going to hope that it works for us here. So we'll give it a shot. But yeah, so I'm just to introduce myself to those that don't know me, I'm Yarko Petru. I'm the Senior Vice President and Regional Sales Leader at Aon for Western Canada. And up until just a couple of years ago, I was actually our life sciences practice leader for British Columbia for the better part of 10 years, which was actually an amazing journey, amazing part of my career, and something I'm still heavily involved in. So, we've been sponsoring Life Sciences British Columbia for a very long time and involved in this space in BC in particular, but in Western Canada for decades now. And it's a very exciting sector for us. And I'll speak to that a little bit in just a moment. So just for those that perhaps don't know us so well, hopefully I can get the slides to move. There we go. If you don't know us at Aon, we like to say we're in the business of better decisions, which is sort of a grandiose term, but really what we do is we take our scale, our thought leadership, and our knowledge around topics such as risk and human capital, and then we try to apply that to help our clients succeed, help them overcome headwinds and get some extra push from the tailwinds in their businesses. So in the context of the life sciences space, as you can see here, some big numbers, but it's suffice to say in summary that Aon is heavily involved in life sciences on the human capital side, on risk advisory, mergers and acquisitions and transitions and all types of events and things like that. In our practice here in BC, but also across the West in Alberta, Saskatchewan and Manitoba has been, picking on the theme of the conference, has been heavily investing in talent, in building our networks and building our connections across the globe. Aon operates in 120 different countries, working with all stages of life science firms, biotechnology, across the spectrum, across those geographies. So oftentimes when people think of someone like an Aon, very often we get phone calls that say, I think I'm too small to give you a call, but I'm calling you anyway. And what I'm hopefully kind of showing here is we've invested heavily in being able to help life sciences and biotechnology and technology companies anywhere in their life cycle, and literally working with firms that are, one person or two people in a contractor to those with tens of thousands of employees and at various stages in their cycle. Our part of our core business is risk, and in this sector, you take on a ton of risk, not just from a product standpoint, but also just making business decisions, deciding where and how to operate, how to compensate your staff, how to attract and retain talent, and keep that structured in a way that's going to move you forward. So a big part of what we hope to continue bringing in BC is advice and solutions and just conversations around how do we help you perform, how do we help you achieve those goals. You've likely seen, or many of you have likely seen, our global risk management survey. And I think, documents like this is really where the rubber hits the road for us, because ultimately what we are is a collection of professionals and thought leaders, but it's our client base that gives us a tremendous amount of information and energy that we can then share with the rest of you, right? And so we very frequently poll our client base and do this in a very systematic way to kind of bring insights on where are your peers? What are your peers concerned about or not concerned about? And what are they doing to manage volatility in the current world and volatility in the markets? How are they, how is disrupted access to capital being managed? Supply chain, obviously a huge topic right now. And I will say that I'll quickly flash my email at the end of this piece here, because if anybody wants to reach out and talk about some of these things, we've got a great team here to talk to you about this. But like I said, we've been invested in this sector for a very long time and are definitely here to say it's been a great part of our story here in BC, and we really appreciate having worked with many of you who are on the call today. I'll leave you with this quick thought. As we look at, again, a world with a high degree of volatility, and when we think about the pandemic, often thought of as a black swan event. Some research we recently published on black and gray swan events and the impact that can have on the value of life science companies very specifically. And in fact, the positive impact that can have when managed very, very well. So this is research we just published that I'm very happy to share. Which speaks to some key strategic factors. And again, this is human capital, this is risk management, this is strategy on what we see in terms of the data that allows firms to either perform or not perform when some of these types of events occur. And very happy to share that because again, volatile days for sure. And our goal, our mission really is to help our clients and help this sector succeed, particularly in Western Canada, because that's home. So thank you for having us, and we're delighted to continue sponsoring.
Thank you very much, Yarko. And it would be great if you can share those in the chat, but also you probably have that information in your booth, I would imagine. If not, people can reach out to Yarko via the profile. Connect with him to get that information and further information about Aon. We really do appreciate your ongoing support. Aon's been a great partner of LSBC, so thank you for being here today and taking that time to do the presentation. We're now going to take a break from the presentation. There are one-on-one networking sessions followed by one-on-one meeting time and expo time. The expo is open all day though, so please go in there when that makes sense for you. Please take the valuable time to connect with each other. If you're unsure how the networking or the one-on-one meetings work, please visit our info desk located in the main event lobby where there are helpful FAQs. You can also drop by the LSBC booth and somebody will help you there. A reminder about our networking and activity leaderboard and tracking, and that the top 10 networkers will receive $25 Starbucks gift cards at the end of the event. And we do that really to encourage people. This event is really about networking, and in particular, being Western Canada, there's a lot of opportunities to make new connections with people that you haven't possibly have run across in the past. So please take that opportunity. Also, a reminder, this platform, if you're a registered attendee, is open for 30 days. So you can continue to network over that time period and view the presentations. So I will see everybody back at 1 o'clock PST, which is in about 50 minutes, where we will commence the Western Canadian Showcase. So thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you at the next session.